My name is Jasmine, and I'll be talking about section 12.1, congruent triangles. Okay, so starting out, we have this ruler, and we do not have a compass, but we will make things work. So we're going to use the ruler as a straight edge, which means we're just going to ignore every point and number on the ruler. So we're going to draw a regular line segment, just like that. And we can call this line segment AB. So now we need to draw a congruent line segment. And we still are not using the numbers on here. We're just using the straight edge and a compass. So let's draw another line. And if we needed to make these two lines congruent, and we had a compass, we would put the pointy ends right there. The marker or the pencil will be right there, and then you could just pick it up, move it, or see. But now we can sort of see where that would be on this new line. So now we will have A prime, B prime. And so, given these two line segments, you see that AB is congruent to A prime, B prime line segment. Okay, so now we're going to talk about congruent triangles. So just because these two triangles look the same does not mean that they are the same. But angle A and angle F, if these were congruent, would have congruent angles. Angle C and angle D, if these were congruent, would have congruent angles. Angle B and angle E would have congruent angles if these triangles were congruent. So angle A congruent to angle F, angle C congruent to angle D, angle B congruent to angle E, and all those angles correspond with each other. So even if all of these angles are congruent, does that mean that the triangles are congruent? We can even look at the line segments if we are not sure. So we have line segment AB, which also looks like line segment FE, and if these triangles were congruent, those two line segments would be congruent. So line segment AB is congruent to line segment FE. Line segment AC would be congruent to line segment DE, or FD, AC, FD. And we also need to make sure that the angles that correspond with each other are also corresponding in the place that they're written in the line segments. For example, ACFD. Angle A and angle F correspond with each other, so we need A and F to be the first ones written. Last but not least, we have line segment BC with line segment, not DE, but ED. Because we need to make sure that those two angles are corresponding. So if we were to take this triangle and flip it over on top of this one, these two triangles would be congruent. Okay, so starting out, we have three line segments, which represents SSS, which is side, side, side. We'll come back to this. We're just going to go ahead and write out a random line segment. And once again, we do not have a compass, so we're going to have to make it work on our own. Okay, let's try this a little lower. Okay, so there is a random line segment. So if we had the compass, we would put the pointy end right there and the marker or the pencil on that, and we would pick it up and drop it, and it would give us right there. So that is our longest line segment marked out on our random line segment. So now we moved on to the second to last. If we had the compass, we would put the pointy ends right here after we got the line, and then we would mark an arc from where it went. And then we get the shorter one, and we do the same thing. So now we have 2 arcs marked, and then this mark right here. And we did this and that with the 2 smaller ones, and the longer one we just marked on the line. So now we have a vertex for this 3-sided triangle. So now we can use a straight edge and just write the lines out. Oh, actually, we need to start from here. So to go to this point. Alright, it's a little bad, but we got it. Okay, so even if we would have did this triangle down here and wrote the arcs below and connected the triangle, it still would have been congruent. This is probably the only way that this triangle can be made. Side, side, sides determines a unique triangle. So if 2 triangles have the same sides, they are congruent. Okay, so now we're going to talk about congruent angles. We still don't have a compass, but we can make things work. So now we're going to draw out a ray, and then another ray. That gives us the angle, and this will be our vertex. So now we're going to go down and draw another random ray, and we're trying to get these 2 to be congruent angles. And we're going to draw the vertex that we have from up here. So if we had a compass, we put the pointy part right here, pencil right here, and we'll start by drawing a particular arc, which would be right here. We can go up and do it right there as well. Then we move down to the other ray and draw that same particular angle, but with this one, you can just carry this one up. So make it like an arc. So now, also with the compass, you would measure the inside of this angle. So we have this measurement right here. Got it. And then you will bring it down to this side and mark it right there. So now that you have an intersection point, you will know which way to draw the line. And given that we don't have a compass, the measurements might be a little off. So now we have 2 congruent angle rays. This one may be a little bit bigger, but the angle is still the same. Okay, so right now we're going to talk about triangle inequality. So the sum of the lengths of any 2 sides of a triangle must be greater than the length of the 3rd side. All right, so we're going to do an example about that triangle inequality. So we have 3 line segments written out. And you know, like before, we have to draw out that last line segment so we can do our markings on. So let's say we had the compass and we did the measurement, and that gets us about right there. So then we take the other line that gives us right here, and the other line segment gives us about right here. So you notice that there was no overlap like there was in the last one for us to have a vertex and make it the triangle. These sides do not correlate with each other. They are 2 different types and lengths. So therefore, the 2 sides have to sum up and be greater than the longest side for the triangle to be able to work. Because if not, the triangle will not work and it will not be able to be made. To break it down a little bit more, we can say that this length is 2, this length was 3, and this length was 7. The sum of these need to be greater than the 3rd side, but 5 is less than 7. So therefore, this triangle was not going to work out. Okay, so now we're moving on to another construction of the triangle labeled side, angle, side. So we have 2 line segments and an angle. And these line segments could be the same, but don't have to. So we drew ours different lengths. And we're going to have our ray down here. like we just talked about in the other ones. And we're going to start off by making the congruent angle for this. So if we had our compass, we'll start off by doing the arc, bottom, top, whole arc. And we'll come down here and we'll measure that arc out right here. Then we'll get the measurement of the angle right there. Come down here, write that angle. And then we will have a vertex right there. And then, since we already have the angle, we can draw this out. Since we already have the angle, we can go ahead and put the segments down. So we have this measurement length, which if we had a compass, we would just measure it out. So we have this measurement length. And then we have this measurement length, which go on this segment right here. And we'll just connect the dots. So now we have a triangle that we represented by side, angle, side. So this can be side 1, side 2, and this is angle 1. So we have side, angle, side. And we drew it out right here. It is in between the two sides and the two line segments. Okay, moving on to another function of our triangles. We have angle, side, angle, which is giving us two angles. Usually when we are given two angles, we automatically should know what the other angle is, since 3 angles in one triangle should equal 180 degrees. But we have 2 angles and 1 side that we are given. So, angle 1, like we did before, we'll mark it off. We had our compass, we mark off our particular arc. We measure that arc, come down, and we mark that arc. And then we'll measure the size of that angle, come down, and measure that one as well. And then we do the same thing with this triangle. Particular arc, come down, and we measure that. And then do the same thing with the inside. So now we have 2 vertices, and we have that one right here. So now we have a total of 3, and we can go ahead, well 4, and connect those dots. So this one should be right there. So we have 1, this was down. So then we have our triangle right here. And that is what our angle, side, angle is. With the side being in the middle of those triangles. So now so far throughout the lesson that we know that we have, if we have side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, or even angle, angle, side, this leads to congruence of the triangles. So one last thing we need to talk about is if we have a side, side, angle. So if the angle is not included, then it does not lead to congruence. So an example of that would be this short angle we haven't marked off, but if we try to mark off this longer angle, it will hit 2 sides of the triangle when it's only supposed to hit 1, and it will not lead us to congruence. So therefore, side, side, angle, the angle has to be included, because if not, it will not lead to congruence.